Hey, what is going on, guys? This is DK. Back at you with another video here from my final look at the Week 2 NFL main slate on Draftkings. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name is DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports, daily fantasy sports slates. Real quick before we get into it, I do want to say thank you guys again for all the support. Seriously, closing in now on 5K subscribers, currently at 4.88 thousand subscribers. The easiest way to support me with all the content being free is just hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. I will be live streaming for Week 2 main slate 1 hour before lock on Sunday. So be sure to check the live stream there. I'll go over all the injury news and then give you guys like a team by team breakdown and answer any questions you guys have at the end. Also, if you guys cannot watch the YouTube videos, I also upload on Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description below. It's just the DK DFS show. But with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So let's not waste any time. Let's take a look at these Vegas odds, and then we can jump into it. So first game here is Falcons-Cowboys. In this one, there should be a lot of points scored. Over-under already moving. It's currently right now 53.5. Cowboys are 4.5 point favorites. With Bills-Dolphins of 41 over-under. Bills are 6-point favorites. Panthers, Bucks, a 48 over/under. Bucks are 8-point favorites. Another game I think could shoot out. Broncos, Steelers is a 40.5 over/under. Steelers are 7-point favorites. Lions, Packers are 49.5 over/under. Packers are 6.5-point favorites. Rams, Eagles are 45.5 over/under. Eagles are 1-point favorites. Vikings, Colts are 49 over/under. The Colts are 3-point favorites. Giants, Bears are 42 over/under. Bears are 5.5-point favorites. 49ers, Jets are 41 over/under. 49ers are 7-point favorites. Jags, Titans of 44 over/under. Titans are 7.5-point favorites. Washington and Arizona of 46.5 over/under. Cardinals are 7-point favorites, I should say. Ravens, Texans, the 50 over/under. Ravens are 7.5-point favorites. Chiefs, Chargers of 47.5 over/under. Chiefs are 9-point favorites, and that's it for the Vegas odds. So let's jump into it. I'll talk cash. I'll talk GPP. We'll start with quarterback. So quarterback, usually I like spending down for cash games, but Lamar Jackson's a guy that I think is both cash and GPP viable. I mentioned it last week for Week 1. I think you can play him in cash for the reason of his floor is super, super high. He's basically a running back and a quarterback combined. He can definitely go for 100 yards on the ground and like a touchdown. So this one, again, there should be a lot of points scored. It's over 50 over/under. Lamar Jackson just has a super, super high floor. The price is doable. If you can fit him in there, I have absolutely no issue with playing Lamar Jackson in both cash and GPP. There's really not a whole lot of bad things to say about him. So really do like Lamar. I think you can play him in both. Mahomes, it's fringe cash viable. I probably wouldn't do it. If I was going to spend up a quarterback, I would rather go to Lamar in cash games. But GPPs, obviously Mahomes is a guy that is always in play. I think he goes a bit overlooked in the slate because I think people are going to get up to Lamar or maybe go down to Kyler. There's a couple of even quarterbacks in between like Dak, Matt Ryan. Mahomes is just, I think, goes forgotten about. So I think he will be low-owned. I like him for the fact that, anytime you can get a low-owned Mahomes is a good thing. So I like him just for the fact that I think he will be lower-owned. Aaron Rodgers looked great in Week 1 against that matchup with Minnesota. Now he gets arguably a better matchup here against the Detroit secondary. So, yeah, Rodgers is certainly playable in GPPs. You can definitely pair him, obviously, with Devontae Adams. Dak Prescott, another guy I think will be pretty popular at 6'8". This game in general, I think you're going to want pieces too. Obviously, the highest over-under of the day, 53.5 over-under. I think Dak looks like a pretty decent play in the mid-range, but I prefer a couple other cheaper guys for cash. Obviously, you can pair him with any of the 3 receivers there for GPPs. Josh Allen, he just struggles with his accuracy. He does have a higher floor because he's a guy that can do a little bit on the ground. He had 57 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So in play for GPPs, but not a guy I'm going to look to really for cash games. Matt Ryan, kind of the same thing with Dak Prescott. I like pairing him with either or both of his receivers for GPPs, but probably not a guy I'm going to look to in cash. Tom Brady, I've been emphasizing targeting players against Carolina. Saw it, not Oakland, now Las Vegas did against them last week. Yeah, Tom Brady had a bad week last week against the Saints, but this is a much, much better matchup. So another guy, Godwin's doubtful, and Mike Evans is a really cheap price at 6.4K. Like, I like that pairing for GPPs. I guess you could do it in cash too, but both guys at a really playable price points. Watson's more of a contrarian play, tougher spot against Baltimore. He's a guy that can definitely get you there if they fall behind big time. He's a guy that is kind of known for his garbage time production, so I'm not going to prioritize Deshaun Watson, but what I do like, again, another guy that has the floor, the rushing ability, so a riskier option for sure, but you can definitely use like him, Will Fuller, and GPPs. A Big Ben, I'm probably not going to get to at 6'3". I'm probably not going to get to Stafford either at 6'2", with no Galladay too. I'm just going to probably pass there. Now, Kyler Murray, mentioned him in the early look video. He is still my guy for cash games at 6'1". The floor is high. He has a rush. He's a guy that obviously can do it on the ground. He had 91 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Washington did play pretty solid defensively, but I'm not super worried about it. It's just a price point thing with Kyler Murray. 6.1K, in my opinion, is just too cheap. So I really like him. He's probably my favorite cash game quarterback. Obviously, you can play him in GPPs as well. Don't mind Wentz at 6K, but I would just rather get to Kyler Murray. I'm probably not getting to Tannehill or Kirk Cousins or Phillip Rivers. I'm going to pass on Daniel Jones too against Chicago. Goff, probably not going to get there either. Probably not get to Minshew. Bridgewater intrigues me. I played him last week. I don't mind going back there at 5'8". He's another guy I think flies under the radar because if you're looking for a guy around this price range, I just think Kyler Murray's going to eat up a lot of that ownership. So Bridgewater does intrigue me. I guess you could use him in cash too. He's a guy that can do a little bit on the ground as well. There should be some points scored in this one. So Bridgewater's playable for me. I'm probably not going to do Jimmy G, a lot of the receivers, and Kittle out. Trubisky's at 5'5". Another guy that I think is cash and GPP playable for the price. He really struggled in the first half, but bounced back. It's a pretty decent matchup here against the Giants, so I think you can use both Trubisky in cash and GPP. A little bit risky because it's Mitch Trubisky, but he picked up there in the second half. I'm probably not going to do Drew Lock. Taylor, another guy I think is playable in both formats for the fact of it's the matchup, right? He's playing Kansas City. I think they're going to have to air it out more. He's a guy that can do a little bit on the ground too, so another riskier option. But for his price, I think he's playable in both formats. Fitzpatrick against Buffalo. I don't really want to target players against Buffalo, so probably not going to do that. That's really it. I'm not going to go Sam Darnold against San Francisco either. Haskins at 5'1". Did have a decent, I guess wasn't great. I mean, 17 of 31. There's other cheap quarterbacks I would prefer than going to Haskins. So that's it for quarterback. Let's talk about running back. So Christian McCaffrey's at 10K. Obviously like him. It's just, what do you have to sacrifice to get him in there? I think, he obviously is a guy that has probably the highest floor of anyone and probably the highest ceiling. It's just you're going to have to pay a premium for him. So he's going to be low owned. 100%. He was low owned last week. He was like 20%. I think it's going to drop because there's still a lot of good plays in the mid-range. I think that's just a safer way to go for cash teams. The mid-range, once again, I think looks really, really good. So McCaffrey's not a guy I'm going to prioritize in cash. If you feel comfortable with enough value, though, there is a decent amount of value, wide receiver, a couple playable running backs, cheaper guys. So if you feel comfortable with those guys, go ahead and plug in McCaffrey because he is basically a running back and a wide receiver. He only had 3 catches. That's his floor for sure. He's a guy that can definitely go for like 8 to 9 catches. So McCaffrey, have no issue with him. It's just what you had to sacrifice to get him in there. Saquon's a guy I'm going to avoid. I don't really want to target him against Chicago. The offensive line struggled. Obviously, it was a bad match there against Pittsburgh, but I'm just not going to get to Saquon at that price. Zeke's the guy that, in this 8K, I guess, the tier below McCaffrey, is the guy that I plugged in Saquon there. Zeke is the guy that I think I like the most here. Again, this Atlanta-Dallas game, you're going to want pieces to it, in my opinion. 53.5 over-under. Zeke was the guy that they utilized on the ground, a bit through the air. I'm not scared of Atlanta's defense at all, so I do really like Zeke. I think he's a safe option. I think the price point looks really, really good. So I'm looking at him for cash games and GPPs. I do really, really like Zeke. Multiple people talk about Derrick Henry. I'm fine with Derrick Henry. 31 carries. They even utilize him a bit in the passing game, which is good to see. He had 3 catches there, so I have no issue with Derrick Henry. They should be playing from ahead in this one. If they are, he'll probably be getting close to 30 touches again. So I have absolutely no issue with Derrick Henry. I think I slightly prefer Zeke because he's the better pass-catching back, but Derrick Henry is certainly playable too. Dalvin Cook at 7-6 against the Colts is fine, but I think I like those other backs above him a little bit more. CEH at 7-4 is at a tricky price point, but he had 25 carries. So, and the Chiefs, they should be playing from ahead in this one. I mean, any piece this Kansas City Chiefs offense is valuable, especially the starting running back. I think he's a pretty decent play, but I don't know if I'm going to prioritize him in cash games either. Aaron Jones, my worry with him is they still utilize Jamal Williams, only at 16 carries. He's playable at 7-1, but I would personally just rather get up to Zeke or Derrick Henry for a bit more. Connor's going to be a void for me right now. He got injured, didn't come back or didn't play the rest of the game early on in the second quarter there. Benny Snell looked good too, so I'm just going to take a wait-and-see approach. I'm not going to go to Connor this week. Eckler intrigued me, but this quote really worried me from the coach. Suggested Eckler could see his pass-catching opportunities limited thanks to the new offensive scheme. So not great to see because Eckler is a guy that is a great pass-catching back. And they should be playing from behind this one, obviously against Kansas City. So I really want to play him this week, but I think he's more suited for GPPs. I don't think I can pull the trigger on him in cash games. That quote, it does worry me. If they're not going to utilize the backs a lot, through the air, that hurts Eckler big time. So again, I want to pull the trigger, but that quote worries me. So I'm going to label him more as just a GPP play. Mostert, the issue is they do have two other backs, yeah, he had a good week last week. He did get utilized through the air a bit too, which is good to see, but I'm probably not going to pull the trigger on Mostert. Gurley at 6-1, it's a playable price. Again, this game should be a shootout. Saw less than 50% of the snaps, though, which does worry me a bit. Yeah, playable, but again, I'm not going to prioritize Todd Gurley either. Now, Sanders is a guy that intrigues me at 6K. They said he's 100% healthy, so what is the workload going to be for Miles Sanders? Well, historically, Philadelphia has been a running back by committee team, but what is it going to be, right? So if I knew he was going to play like 75 to 80% of snaps, I would probably play Miles Sanders, but there's no guarantee right now, so I don't think I can go there in cash, but 100% playable in GPPs. I think he can have a breakout year this year if he stays healthy. Obviously, basically everyone in the fantasy football communities has been talking about Miles Sanders. Kenyon Drake at 5'9" is one of my favorite plays running back. I just think that's way too cheap. I think you can pair him with Kyler Murray if you can't get to Arizona receiver and you're playing Murray, because Kenyon Drake's a really good receiving back, and they will utilize the backs a lot through the air. So I do like Kenyon Drake a lot here. I think he's one of the better plays in the mid-range. I like him a lot for cash. Obviously, you can go to him in GPPs as well. David Johnson, another guy that intrigues me here. They should be playing from behind. I want to see what the status is on Duke Johnson, though. If Duke Johnson's out, I think there's a real possibility David Johnson gets most, if not like all, the snaps. So if Duke Johnson plays, though, then that would worry me because this is a game they should be playing from behind. I think they would utilize Duke a bit more in that situation. So David Johnson right now, if Duke Johnson's out, I would like David Johnson a lot more. Malcolm Brown did look really good, but still, I don't know if I want to pull the trigger on a guy that's kind of like a 50-50 split. The even will use like a three-headed monster here. So I know he was good week one, but I'm probably not going to go to Malcolm Brown. Jonathan Taylor's a guy I think will get ownership. I have interest. Obviously, with Marlon back now out for the year. The concern is they have Nyheim Hines, who I think they will utilize in passing down situations. But if the Colts are playing from ahead in this one, I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Jonathan Taylor. Good offensive line. The price point's decent. I'm a little bit worried if they fall behind. They might utilize Hines more, right? So I know he still had 6 catches last game, so it's a tricky one. I think he's playable for cash. I think he's playable for GPPs. If the Colts are playing from ahead, I think he could have a really, really nice day here. So Taylor's a guy that I have interest in both formats. Montgomery at 5'6", yeah, playable. Kind of the same issue Jonathan Taylor is. They'll utilize Tariq Cohen a decent amount in the third down situations. Ingram, I'm not going to get to at 5'4". They just use too many backs there in Baltimore. Again, Hines is too expensive for me to get to a 5'3". I'm not going to do it. Ronald Jones intrigues me at 5-2. It's a really good matchup. Again, I want to target players against Carolina. The concern is they do have two other backs. They have McCoy, they have Fournette. They might utilize them a bit more. He still played under 50% of the snaps too, even though he did play well. So another guy that's playable, but a little bit risky. I think he's fringe cash playable. You can look to him in GPPs. Melvin Gordon, I'm not going to get to against Pittsburgh. Even with Lindsey out, I don't really want to target players against this Pittsburgh defense right now. So probably not going to do Melvin Gordon. That's really it. Like, I don't think I'm going to get to any of these cheap backs. 8P, I know he had a good week 1. They still have two other backs there in Detroit. Yeah, I'm not going to get to Fournette. Kelly, I'm going to pass on at 4-7. Gore, I mean, he is technically their starting back, but he's like, what, almost 40 years old now. It's not a good spot here against the 49ers. I'm not going to get to Frank Gore. I'll let others go to him. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, again, Cam Akers, where they have Malcolm Brown. I just probably not going to pull the trigger there. Benny Snell was possibly a value play, but James Conner now healthy. Probably, I'm just going to take a wait-and-see approach there for that Pittsburgh backfield. Again, Adams will utilize him, will utilize Frank Gore. I don't want a piece of that Jets backfield. Gibson was the better back for Washington. How much does he get workload is the question. You can look to him as a GBP option, right? He had 9 carries, 36 yards, a couple catches too. He was, better than Ronald Jones, or not Ronald Jones, Peyton Barber for Washington, who had 17 carries for 29 yards. So if you're going to make me pick one of those Washington backs, it would be Gibson. He's the better pass catching back, but I don't think I can go there in cash games. You can look to him GPPs for the cheap price for sure. I think that's really it though for running back. So let's move on to wide receiver. The top two guys had huge weeks last week, Adams and Hopkins. I think they're playable in both formats. Devontae Adams is going to be a target machine. He had 17 targets. I don't think we get that again, but this Detroit secondary is terrible. You can definitely pair him with Rodgers and GPPs. Have no issue with that at all. Probably not going to get 44 fantasy points again from him, and the ownership will be up, but he's a scary fade right now. He really is. Hopkins, kind of the same thing, right? I don't think he's going to get 16 targets again, but you can definitely pair him with Kyler Murray. I like that. Or if you can't get to Hopkins, there are a couple other cheap Arizona receivers we'll get to in a bit. I have interest in both those guys. You can get to them in cash if you want to, if you're comfortable with it. But both the guys at the top, no real issue. It's just, do you feel comfortable with enough pieces around him to get him in your lineup? Hill's a guy I'm probably going to avoid. I'm not going to consider in cash. You can take a shot at him for GPPs, obviously, because of the big play upside, but not really going to look to in cash. Kind of same thing with Julio. At his price, I slightly prefer Ridley. I guess you could play both, but if you're going to make me pick one of the Atlanta receivers, right now I'm going to give that to Ridley, just for the discount, right? So I guess he's fringe, cash, GPP playable. You can play both. Again, this is a game that could definitely be a shootout, the highest run of the day. So no real issue with Julio. I think I do just slightly prefer Ridley for cash games, just for the $600 discount. Atlanta's a team that's just going to throw the ball out, right? Matt Ryan threw for over 50 times, which is crazy. There should be a lot of points scored in this one, like I mentioned. So, like both Atlanta receivers, I do slightly prefer Ridley, though, for cash. Godwin, doubtful. We'll get to Mike Evans in a bit. I think he's one of my favorite plays. Thielen's fine at 7-2. He is basically their only good receiver now on this team. 6 catches, 8 targets. I'm fine with Thielen for GPPs. Don't know if I need him in cash, though. Let's see. Cooper Kupp had a subpar week there. Week 1, 4 catches, 5 targets. I think those go up a little bit. It was Robert Woods that had the better day. I think he was a little bit overlooked on the slate, but I do have interest. I think he goes, again, lower owned. Let's see. Mike Evans at 6'4". I know he's dealing with that hamstring injury, but with Godwin doubtful and this matchup against Carolina, I really like Mike Evans. He's probably one of my favorite plays of the day, especially for wide receiver. For sure, cash game and GPP viable. Really, really like Mike Evans. I also have interest in Allen Robinson. Didn't have a great week for me last week. 5 catches, 9 targets, but he is clearly the number 1 receiver. It's a good matchup here against the Giants. I think that was more of his floor game. 9 targets is good to see. So I like Allen Robinson as well in the mid-range. Both at 6'4", I think are both really, really solid options. DJ Moore, if you want to run it, if you want like a Tampa Bay stack and want to run it back with someone, I'm fine with DJ Moore. Had 9 targets, only 4 catches. But the 6.3K price point is very, very fair. Let's see. All three Dallas receivers are definitely viable on this slate. Cooper at 6'3", Gallup at 5'6", CeeDee Lamb at 4'7". If you're going to make me pick, I'll take the cheapest of the bunch at CeeDee at 4'7". But all three, 100% playable. Again, I think you're going to want exposure to this game, so I like all three Dallas receivers. I think they're all three playable in both formats, in cash and GPP. We do have Galladay out. We'll talk about a couple cheaper Detroit receivers. Yeah, Fuller. Again, you can pair him with Deshaun Watson and GPPs, but that's about it. I'm not going to go there in cash. Let's see. A.J. Brown out. I think that's a slight boost to Corey Davis, who had a nice week 1. Sutton, questionable. Got to keep an eye on that. Let's see. T.Y. Hilton at 5'7", I think looks like a really solid play in the mid-range. We saw what Devonta Adams just did to that Minnesota secondary. Minnesota secondary looked terrible. And the price is really fair on T.Y. Hilton. Also talk about Paris Campbell, who I like too, but both these Colts receivers I think are really, really good plays. I think you can look to him in both cash and GPP. I do have a good amount of interest there in T.Y. Hilton. He still has that big play upside too as well, which is always good to see. Allen, if you want to pair him with a low-owned Tyrod Taylor and GPPs, I'm fine with that, but it's just... I don't think I can pull the trigger yet in cash. Even though they should be playing from behind, I don't think I do it in cash games. Mentioned all of the Dallas receivers. The Giants receivers against Chicago, I'm probably going to stay away from. Crowder's out. I'll talk about some cheap Jets receivers. Definitely possible some value plays there. Let's see. Other options. Yeah, if you can't get to Allen Robinson, I'm fine with Anthony Miller. But for me, I would just rather pay the extra, $1,200 for Allen Robinson. So I think the upside is a lot higher on him. Again, I'm probably going to stay away from the Giants receivers. I don't really want to target the Denver receivers against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh look really, really good defensively, so I'm not going to go out of my way there. Amendola's at 4.8. He's definitely playable for as a cheaper option with no Galladay. Detroit should be playing from behind this one, which is good for Amendola. So I think he's a pretty decent play as a cheaper option. Russell Gage is a guy I think will be pretty popular. I don't have an issue. He had 9 catches, 12 targets, partly due to Atlanta really falling behind early, so they had to kind of just air it out. I think he's a pretty decent option. I think he will be pretty popular. If I think the ownership gets high enough, I might look elsewhere. But yeah, Gage is 100% a guy you can look to as a cheaper option. Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, questionable. If he's out, would get a boost, but I'm not really super excited about that matchup there against Buffalo. Watkins did have a good week 1, but he's just too inconsistent for me to really feel confident about him. Samuel, playing out of the slot, did look a little bit better there. Had, 5 catches and 8 targets. Playable in GPPs, but I think they're better, safer, cheap options for cash. Mentioned CeeDee Lamb, I think he's a really good option there at 4.7. Yeah, so the 2 Arizona receivers, Fitz at 4.6, Christian Kirk, I believe, is at 4.3. If you can't get to Hopkins and you're playing Kyler Murray like I am for cash teams, and you want to pair him, you don't have to pair him with someone. You definitely don't. But if you want to, you can go to Fitz. You can go to Kirk, right? Hopkins is not going to get what do you have, 15, 16 targets. That's not going to happen every single week. There's going to be more targets for Fitz, more targets for Kirk, who played most of the game. So I think both the Arizona receivers are definitely playable. Fitz at 4.6, Kirk at 4.3. I like them both as cheap options. Deontay Johnson, definitely viable. Looked great there week 1, 6 catches, 10 targets. Yeah, I think he's another cheap option that looks pretty decent. Again, I mentioned Paris Campbell. I like him as well. If you can't get a T.Y. Hilton and you want a piece of that Colts passing game or receiving game, Paris Campbell is a guy that you can definitely look at. 6 catches, 9 targets, 71 yards. Both him, T.Y., I like a decent amount at their respective prices. The 49ers receivers, I know they're really depleted, but I don't know if I can take a shot on Brandon Ayuk at 4.3. Looks like he's going to be good to go, but I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach on the 49ers receivers at least. We'll talk about a tight end who I think is a possible play in a bit. Yeah, the Philly receivers, like Rieger's a 4.1. My issue is they utilize 4 or 5 receivers there. No one really played huge snaps. If I was going to take a shot on a Philly receiver, I guess it would be Rieger. But I feel more comfortable with the tight ends. The Jags receivers, I'm probably not going to prioritize them. Scotty Miller. So, with Chris Godwin doubtful, I think Scotty Miller looks like one of the better cheap options. He had 5 catches, 6 targets, 73 yards. The snaps will go up on him if Godwin's out. I really like him as a cheap option. He is definitely one of my favorite plays. Yeah, he's up there for sure as one of the top value, in my opinion. Let's see, yeah. So Marvin Hall played a good amount of snaps there with no Galladay. Didn't do great, but playable. A riskier value option. Again, I would prefer some of the other value guys that I did mention already. Oh, did I skip over? Let me go to, where's Tennessee? I do want to mention them really quick, and then we can go over to tight end. Am I losing it? Where's Tennessee? Let me just go to Corey Davis. So Corey Davis at 4K. No A.J. Brown. He had a good week 1. 7 catches, 8 targets, 101 yards. For their number 1 receiver, I think he's another guy you can look to as a cheap option. Now, the concern is Tennessee is a run-first team, but someone's going to have to catch the ball. No A.J. Brown. I think Corey Davis looks like the guy, so I do like him. You can also look to Humphreys. I think probably plays a few extra snaps here at 3-4. A playable cheap option as well. So, yeah, that's basically it for wide receiver. There's a lot of guys down at the bottom, like 4.5K and below, that look pretty good in the slate. So, if you feel comfortable with enough of those guys, you can get Christian McCaffrey, right? McCaffrey will be low-owned, and that's definitely a contrarian build that I do like, but probably not for cash. Again, I think the mid-range approach is more the cash game build. Kelsey at 7K, I'm going to avoid against the Chargers. Not going to prioritize him. You could always look to him in GPPs, but not for cash. Kittle, injured. We'll talk about Jordan Reed here in a sec. Mark Andrews, snaps one up for him with Hayden Hurst out of town. Good matchup here against Houston. I think he's a pretty good play in the mid-range. Now, would I go there for cash? He's fringe cash playable. I usually like spending down on tight end for cash, but I like him in GPPs a lot here. Yeah, Ertz at 5.6 had a subpar week, but I don't really have concerns. I think he's playable. I think he's the guy that goes a little bit forgotten about. Probably not getting to Ingram. Probably going to pass on Hawkinson too. I'll pass on Hunter Henry. Goddard, again, he had a really big week, but the price went way up from 4.1 to 5K. Yeah, both Philly tight ends are safe, but I think I prefer some other tight ends cheaper. Hayden Hurst, I like again. I know he didn't do great, but he ran the most routes as a tight end for week 1. 3 catches, 5 targets. I think some more of those catches will go to Hurst compared to all 3 of the receivers for Atlanta. So I still like Hurst a good amount here at 4.6. I think he goes a little bit lower owned, but I do like him a lot once again. We have no Blake Jarwin. Talk about a Dallas tight end there in a sec. Font had a good week, but again, I don't want to target tight ends. I don't want to target really players against Pittsburgh. Juno Smith is playable too. Again, no A.J. Brown. They're going to be pretty thin. So him, Corey Davis are probably going to target a decent amount. I think he's playable as a cheap option for sure. Gronk had a subpar week 1. Don't hate the idea of going back to the well there. The price went way down to 4.1. Again, a really good matchup too. So I actually do have a little bit of interest in Gronk. I guess you could go there in cash, a little bit risky, but I think he has a bounce back week here. 4.1K. I think looks like a pretty good price there against the Carolina defense. Let's see. So Logan Thomas was the guy I mentioned in my early look video. I still like him a good amount here. They just utilize him a ton. 4 catches, 8 targets. It's a good matchup here against Arizona. I think this game could definitely shoot out. I really like Logan Thomas. I think he's going to be popular. So if you want to get off a chalky play like Logan Thomas, there are definitely other options we'll talk about in a bit. But right now, he's probably the guy that I'm looking to for cash games. Herndon with no Jameson Crowder. Oh, I guess I forgot to talk about those Jets receivers. Let me go back to wide receiver and let me go to the Jets really quick because there are playable cheap options here for the New York Jets. I know it's a tough spot, but no Crowder. So Brashard Perriman, Chris Hogan. They're going to be the top receivers. They shouldn't be playing from behind. Perriman 3.8, Chris Hogan 3.2. Both these guys are 100% playable. They said Braxton Berrios is going to take the Jameson Crowder role in the slot, which is a pretty valuable role because you saw they really like targeting Crowder. Well, he had a huge week. 7 catches, 13 targets. So Braxton Berrios at the flat min, they said he's going to be the slot receiver. Of those 3 guys, I think I would feel the best in taking the shot on Berrios, to be honest. All 3 have risk, obviously, right? But Jets should be falling behind. All 3 should get good snaps. I think all 3 are definitely playable here for the Jets. Well, let's go back to tight end. And I was still going to talk about Chris Herndon. I got him really high in this year. With no Crowder, I think he does get a pretty decent boost. He's at 3-4. Had 7 targets last game. I think he's definitely a guy you can look to as a cheap option. All right, and then let's look at the injuries here. So no Kittle. Let me go to San Francisco. Jordan Reed. He's at 2-6. I know. He's a guy that's been literally injured, it feels like, the last 5 years. And now he's on San Francisco. But with Kittle out, I assume he's going to be the number 1 tight end. If that's the case, at 2.6K against this Jets team, with the 49ers pretty thin at wide receiver, I like Jordan Reed. So I think he's playable. Again, gotta look into a little bit more, but I assume he is going to be their number 1 tight end. So I have interest in Jordan Reed as a cheap play. Let me go to Dallas now. So Dallas with no Blake Jarwin. Dalton Schultz should be their pass-catching tight end, 3-7. Don't get him at an amazing discount, but again, really good matchup here. I'm fine with it. I'm not going to prioritize him, but he's another guy that it is playable as a cheap option. And then finally, Jack Doyle's out, so you're not going to feel great about this. But Mo Alley-Cox should be the number 1 tight end. Another guy that is playable if you need a really, really cheap option. So I think that's really it for tight end. Finally, defense for me. If you're going for that safety, it's probably, a couple of these defenses at the top, like the 49ers at 4K or the Steelers against Denver. I'm fine with the Bills too, Bears even. Like any of those top defenses are good options. But normally I like spending down. Like I think the Jets are playable at the flat min at 2K. I'm fine with the Dolphins against Josh Allen, who is kind of turnover prone. So I guess even the Jags are okay. There are some decent options, but for me, I'm probably just going to take a shot on one of those cheap defenses and hope they don't kill me. Because I guess if you're going for the safety, right, you can go for one of these top defenses, but you're going to have to pay a premium, right? It's like a 2K difference. 2K is huge, right? I can utilize that a lot for like wide receivers or tight ends, spending up a little bit more. So for me, I'm probably going to take a shot on one of those really cheap defenses and hope they just don't kill me. But I think that's going to do it for the video today, guys. So if you have been enjoying the content so far, I really appreciate it if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. Again, I will be live streaming 1 hour before lock, going over everything. So make sure to check out the live stream, guys. I'll answer all your guys' questions. Thanks again, guys. I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you all Sunday morning in the live stream.